Well, hello. I'm going to show you how to do my tantric stitch. And this is a really, really fun stitch to do. It does have pearls in it, but it's not just rows of pearls, boring old pearls. It's a fun use and different use of pearls. And I had a lot of fun with this stitch. It does not curl. And so it can be used for everything. You can use it in between other stitches. You can use it for a blanket, shawl, scarf, hat. It works fine in the round. In the round, you just do it a little bit different. You can, because you use the same pegs as you go around, you'll just figure out how to mark them. If it's even, they'll be perfectly balanced. If it's odd, you'll just change one. It won't make that much difference. It'll make one stitch look like this edge, that's all. It'll blend in, and that can be the back. And when you're doing it in a flat panel, what you do is you do odd pegs. And the reason for that is when you have two peg pairs and you're doing different stitches on them, your last stitch will be different than your first stitch unless it's odd. Then you do one more of the first stitch. And so then you get the same pattern all the way to the edge. So if you're doing a flat panel, cast on uneven pegs. Okay. And this is a stitch video, so I'm not going to show you how to do a whole project, but I'm going to give you enough that you could do a whole project if you wanted to. So first, let's go through all the supplies. So I've got a 3/4 inch loom. This one's from Cindwood. It's the 40 peg 3/4 inch loom. So it is smaller than the 42 inch, bigger than a 36 inch. It's the in-between size. And I just love this loom. I got a number of them when they had them on sale. Just a really nice size. It's like the Nifty Knitter purple loom, but you have a 3/4 inch gauge instead of a 5/8 inch gauge. So anyway, that's the loom that I have here. And what else? Oh, the yarn. Okay, this is a bulky. It's Charisma yarn, and the color is Holiday. Holiday. And I don't know why they called it Holiday. It's the kind of color that's good all winter, if you're making a winter outfit here. And you can use any yarn. You can do this stitch in a thinner gauge with thinner yarn, no problem. It looks good in a number of gauges. It works well. And let's see, what else? Anything else here? My loom hook. Okay, now, with my loom hooks, I always have to say they don't make them anymore, but this one, they do still make this and other varieties like this, and I just think this is a beautiful hook. Very nice. It just fits in my hand really good. I got it on Etsy, and the name of the people who sell it are called Touche Crochet. They sell all kinds of crochet hooks that are really nice. I bought my daughter some crochet hooks from them. That's how I knew about them. And so I saw when they actually listed a loom hook. So they do loom hooks every once in a while, and I'm sure you can also request them. And it's just really lovely. I haven't seen anyone else making this kind of style of color. Okay, and the actual angle on the hook is really good, and the hook, they've softened it down. It's not too sharp. It's still pretty sharp, but not too sharp, so it's not going to really wear on your loom pegs. Okay, so that's where you get it, Touche Crochet. Alrighty, let's get started. Okay, I'm right at the edge, so I guess we're going to start at the edge. So I am just doing one edge stitch because this stitch doesn't curl, and I marked my loom for the stitches. So all of my first stitch don't have a marker. So there's number 1 stitch, number 2 is marked. Number 1 stitch, number 2 is marked. Number 1 stitch, number 2 is marked. 1 stitch, 2 is marked, and then we have the bare stitch both here, the bare pegs, because we wanted it to match, okay? So this tells me what I'm going to be doing. Now this stitch is just one row. You do the same stitch on the same pegs each time. It's really easy, although you might want to practice it, and if you practice it, you'll see that even a beginner could do this with some practice. It's really quite easy. So because I'm going to do owl eye on this second peg, and that gave me the look of this on the edges, I could have gone into the other stitch because it didn't curl, but when I did my swatches, I like that look better, but you can do it any way you want. You can have the other stitch first too. But because this is owl eye here, I go over both of them. Okay. And then I take the working yarn, go to the front, so I can redo this peg, but I don't have anything to wrap it with, so I just wrap it on its own. Then I'm over at the peg with the marker, okay? So now I do a purl. So I do a purl. Every time I hit a stitch with a marker, I'm going to do a purl. So I do my purl. And there's lots of videos on purling if you don't know how to do it. Now that I've done my purl, I'm going to go behind the peg and in front of it and wrap over the next peg and knit them off. Okay. And then I'm going to go around and wrap that one again and knit it off. Then we're back on the peg with the marker. So I'm going to do a purl. And it starts to go really fast. Then I'm going to go from behind, wrap over it, and wrap over the next peg and knit them off. And then I'm going to rewrap this one before I move on. And then back I am. So it's the same thing all the way around. I'll show you a different way to do it too. And then it'll help you understand the mechanics. And you can do it that way if you want. This way is just a little bit faster. Okay, and you're keeping it loose. Keep it loose. You'll get a more lofty, nicer stitch if you keep it loose. Okay, so there's the purl. I come around and wrap the next peg. Okay, wrap it. And I can wrap it like that, holding that there. That's fine. As long as it's nice and loose, it'll be fine. And then you can just do your purl on this last one that needs a purl. Come back around. Instead of every 4 stitches, only one is purl. That's not too bad. And look at how fun it is to do this purl. It's a fun stitch. Okay, and then I come over the last 2 pegs like this. And I'll do a few more rows with you. And I'm also going to show you the other way of doing it. Okay. So then we rewrap these, come around, do the second wrap on this one, and there we go. And always keep this loose at the edge. Okay, now we have to do a purl. Okay, so now I'm going to do the pegs one at a time so you can see the motions, okay? So there's the purl. Then we come around and wrap it in a U-wrap. Then we put the U-wrap over this peg and come around and wrap it again. Okay, then we come over here, do the purl, come around. I call this stitch the purl around every time I use it. Because when I first did it, I thought, oh, this is really nice to blend into my stitches. So I'm not going to do a video just on it because, well, I might. I'll try it out, but I wasn't that crazy about it, but I didn't try it with a lot of yarns, but I think it just looked nicer when I mixed it with other stitches. Okay, so if you think of it that way, we're going to do the owl eye on one peg. We do this and then we rewrap it without wrapping the next peg. So it's just like this. and then we come over and we do this stitch, which I call the purl around. Okay, and that. Now I'm going to go back to the way I like to do it because it's faster. So I'm doing this. This is the second wrap around. I come over here. I do the purl, wrap around and go over the next peg. So you understand now the mechanics of the stitches, and I'm just doing it a faster way, a way that's easier for me to keep my tension good too. So you keep this loose. You can always loosen the peg if it gets too tight. Keep it nice and loose so that your border works fine. And oh, actually, before I do that stitch, let's take a look at this. Is the cast on, and the cast on I will put a link to on this video, as well as the bind off that matches it, so you'll be able to do this cast on. So all I did was the cast on, then 2 rows of owl eye stitch. I showed you how to do it a bit in here, but I have tons of videos with owl eye in it, and you can look at my owl eye stitch video if you don't know the stitch. Okay, so I did the chain cast on, although because it doesn't curl, you could do any cast on. But that is such a nice one, and you don't have to tighten it up after. Why give yourself extra work? And then the border I'm doing is this border. I don't like slipped edges because they're so loose, but this is a nice tight edge. Won't catch on anything. With these kind of stitches, I just think it looks so nice. It's kind of a braided look. And then on this side, just kind of a braided look, nice and tight. And it's stretchy, so it stretches with the work really nice and blends in with it. And let's look at this other side, the stitches. I want to do that. The other side is really, really nice. I actually am going to do pieces that are reversible with this stitch, because for me, when you say it's reversible and both sides are the same, it's like, that's not very reversible in my mind, because everything looks the same, no difference. One shawl, that's all it is. But let's say you had a shawl and one side was like this, and this has loads of texture. It's a really nice stitch too. So you could have where it with this side showing or this side showing, and you have 2 very different stitches. So I just think that's cool, and I love this side as well. So I'm going to make sure the things I have, if I do a hat in it, I'll make sure it's reversible, because in the round it's a really nice stitch too. And it looks pretty much the same because well, it looks a little different because your owl eye stitch is a bit different, but it still looks really cool. The purl over doesn't change in look as much. Okay, but it's really a similar look. Okay, so I'm going to do another row. I want to make sure you get the mechanics of this. So there's a little button. You can slow down the video if you need to. And it's usually in the bottom right hand corner, but it can be different on a device depending what kind of device that you're on. So it's there somewhere. Google where it is if you can't find it. But you can slow down, and that'll help you a lot if you're having trouble figuring out how the stitch is going. We all think differently. Okay, so I kept this nice and loose. I'm going over both of these pegs, knitting them off, and you can see how loose this is. See, just really loose. I left it, and this is loose too. I like to knit nice and loose. Never ever get a sore hand that way. And then I do the second stitch on this, and I'm coming over to this peg, so I have to purl it. So purl. Okay, then I go around it, do the first U-wrap on this peg, go over, loom hook, catch that yarn, go over, come over for the second stitch, come back and do your purl around. So you do a purl, and then you do on around and over this peg. I got a little bit distracted because I'm looking and making sure on the computer screen that I'm keeping this in the camera, and all of a sudden my computer went dark and I couldn't see. So anyway, here we go. I finished this one. We come over here and we do the purl. So you'll always know which way you're going because the yarn will be that way. The yarn will be that way off the owlie peg. Do the purl around, and because you're going the same direction around, the yarn will be going the way you're going again. So it's always the way you're going. So if you put down the work and you go, oh my gosh, I'm having an emergency, I left the burner on or something, you can come back. Here's your yarn telling you which way you're going, and you know because they're marked what stitch you're doing. Now, the other thing is I keep a little marker right here on my peg, and it tells me the name of the stitch, which is Tantric Stitch, and what stitches I'm doing, and if I have them coded, if they're the ones with the marker. I put a mark to show it's with the marker. That way, if this gets put away because something's happening in my life and I pick it up months later, I'm not going to go, what was this? How was I doing this? It's all here. It says what the stitch is with little tips on how to do it. Plus I have another thing that I keep on my computer and back up telling me how I do my stitches. And it has everything I need right here clipped on. And if I was doing it in the round, I would take off the marker and just clip it onto the bottom of the work. And it really helps because I never forget what I'm doing that way. Well, I do forget, but this tells me so it doesn't stay forgotten. That'd be more accurate. Okay, so we're going to do the U-knit or U-wrap. Go over it again, second time. Oh, just a minute, I might have gone over it when I did that stitch. So if you ever do that and don't know what you did, take it off. No, it only had one stitch on it. So I go over it, put the second stitch on it, come over and do the purl around stitch. So you do the purl, then you go around it and knit it off. Okay, and then I just do the edge stitch here because that's an owlie stitch anyway, so I just doing actually a regular owlie border. Nice and loose here, always loosen it up. Come back. And that's all there is to it. I'll put the second stitch on here so I don't forget. And this is where I usually leave my work if I'm going to leave it for a while, so that I know I've done everything I needed to do on both these pegs, and the first stitch will be this one. And as you see, it grew quite a bit. Just those, there's the 2 rows right here. They're that long. So it grows quite fast. And here's what it looks like on the other side. On this light color, you can see the stitch more. It's a really nice stitch too. And it does not curl. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you don't like this stitch because you don't like to do purls, or you can't do purls because you have a problem, you're using one arm, you've got arthritis, all kinds of reasons you'd have a hard time doing the true knit and the purl stitch. So if you find this stitch is too hard, I have plenty on my channel with a lot of texture. So you'll find one that works for you. So until next time, bye.